Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah. I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard.
From the field to the film room to the war room, we've got you covered every step of the way as the road to the draft starts right now on BGN Radio. Hello and welcome to another episode of the BGN Draft Show. I am your host, Shane Haff. You can follow me on Twitter and YouTube at Shane Haff NFL. I'm joined today by my co-host and fellow draft enthusiast Deibler. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Be sure to check out his podcast, Party on Broad. Deibler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. We are entering week 10 of college football, man. It's about to get juicy. It's about to get spicy with some of the top matchups here, and we're going to break it all down right now.
All right. I am also joined today by my co-host on Chalk Talk. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. Be sure to check out his Tough Cover radio show live every Saturday before college football. Mark, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. College football, I think it's one of the most fun college football seasons of all time this year. I think there's so many fun storylines that's wide open, I think more wide open than usual. And this week, it's going to determine a lot of where this season goes. And there's a lot of fun matchups. I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, after watching OU lose in a monsoon on Saturday, I'm just ready for the NFL season, NFL week. But for real, though, I'm so hyped about this week's NFL slate. Like, there are so many good games. It was hard to sit down and prep for a college football podcast, but so much good football going on this weekend. We missed last week's show. I was traveling back from Philadelphia. Mark was traveling for work. We just weren't able to make it work out, but we're back this week. And so we're going to recap our player of the weeks from 2 weeks ago. So throwing it back. But Deibler had wide receiver Keon Coleman from Florida State, who had 2 receptions for 54 yards. He takes home third place for that one. I had running back Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, who had 20 carries for 99 yards and 8 receptions for 51 yards. Would have been good enough to win most weeks, but he gets second place behind quarterback J.J. McCarthy from Michigan, who threw for 287 yards and 4 touchdowns. So Mark takes home first place in that one. Through 9-10 weeks of our competition, Mark and I are tied for first place with 10 points each. Deibler is 1 point behind at 9. So this could not be closer. And to be honest, I thought y'all would run away with this one, the way that you follow college football a little more than I do. So I'm just happy I'm hanging in there. But that is last week's player of the weeks. At the end of this episode, we will make our player of the week predictions for the upcoming week. But before we do that, let's talk Eagles draft targets of the week. Let's get into it. A lot of college football this weekend. If you're not the biggest college football fan, but you just want to turn it on, maybe you want to see some guys that you're going to hear us talk about in the offseason, some guys the Philadelphia Eagles might draft. Watching the Georgia game is always a good place to start. But beyond that, Deibler, give us your Eagles prospect to keep an eye on this weekend.
I'm going with the return of TreVeyon Henderson, running back out of Ohio State, man. Ohio State has really struggled to run the football this season, man. We've seen TreVeyon dealing with some injuries that have limited or otherwise sidelined him for a bulk of 2023. This guy returned against Wisconsin, finished last week with 162 yards, a touchdown on 24 carries. He also had 4 receptions for 45 yards. This is a game changer for Ohio State. He was looking at a really high seed in the college football playoff as they're undefeated, man. Henderson's a spark plug with explosiveness, 5'10", 214 pounds. He's a chain mover, but he's also got the ability to accelerate and beat defenders to spots, man. Again, a dense runner, lateral twitch. This guy has 266 rushing yards the last 2 weeks, man. I think that could just be absolutely disastrous for the Big Ten and any team they face moving forward, man. TreVeyon Henderson is back, and I think everyone should be very, very nervous.
I mean, if you're a college running back, what could sound better than getting drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles? You get to run behind, although we won't talk about the fact some of those linemen might not have much left, but you get to run behind this offensive line. You get to play for a fan base that will scream, run the ball more, no matter what the outcome of the game is. Like, just perfect. I mean, we literally got people. Jalen Hurts has the best passing game of his career. The offense puts up 38 points. Would have been more if not for 2 fumbles inside the 5-yard line on running plays, by the way. People are still saying run the ball more. TreVeyon Henderson should be crossing his fingers and praying he falls to like the 3rd round where the Eagles will actually draft a running back. So, TreVeyon Henderson, give him a watch in the Ohio State game. Mark, who are you keeping an eye on for the Eagles this week?
I am going with a guy from a team who is not on the same planet as Ohio State this season, but you can find NFL draft value anywhere. I mean, you see that every year. There's players from plenty of bad programs and bad teams that pop once they get to the next level. And that's what I think is going to happen here with Landon Jackson from Arkansas, who seemingly seems to be the fastest riser in terms of NFL draft prospects this season. He was, I mean, if you sneak by Dives' radar, you're under the radar because Dives has done like 800 players already for this year. And I surprised him a little bit with this guy. He's popped up into first rounds all of a sudden. Mel Kiper has him ranked as his 2nd best edge rusher for this class. The Draft Network put him in the first round. I think a couple other spots are starting to really give him credit. This guy is an absolute freak. 6'7", 281. And to give you an idea of just how much of a freak he is, the WWE, for those out there who don't know what that is a wrestling organization, professional wrestling, and they have this program called the Next in Line program, making like NIL kind of is their program, where they sign these college football players who they think are larger than life, and not just college football players, college athletes from all over the country. Landon Jackson, if he does not go to the NFL, is signed to be a WWE superstar after he finishes his days in college. That's how physically imposing this guy is. The WWE saw him and were like, give him to us. We want him to wrestle. But it doesn't look like they're going to get their hands on him because it looks like he's going to be a first-round pick this year. And at 6'7", 281, it's not hard to figure out why. And usually when you have these kind of guys who pop up out of nowhere, it's because like they're a 1-star recruit or they work their way up the system. That's not the case with Landon Jackson. Landon Jackson was a top 100 recruit. He was a 4-star recruit. He actually went to LSU, didn't get playing time at LSU, transferred to Arkansas, got a little playing time last year, got 3 sacks, even got a pick, but he's really taken off this year, and he's been playing really well against the run game as well as rushing the passer. He's got 5.5 sacks, 3.5 of those come against Alabama, which that's the best competition that he's played all season, had his best game in kind of the biggest game of his season. So Landon Jackson, you guys know my type, and I am going to fall in love with this guy.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of him. And then when I looked him up and it's like, oh, he's over 6'6" and he's an edge rusher. Like that explains everything.
Yeah. For people out there who don't know, I have a type and it's tall edge rushers. Give me edge rushers that are 6'6" and above, and I'll take it every time.
Yep.
All right. Dibes, anything you want to add on him?
No, Arkansas has just kind of fallen off a cliff this year. It's a team that I actually had somewhat high hopes for with KJ Jefferson and Raheem Rocket Sanders and that offense, but they took a shot this past offseason with a lot of offensive linemen leaving and things like that. So they're in shambles. So they kind of just have been under the radar. I haven't really paid attention to them at all. And I'm actually shocked I didn't know he had 4 sacks against Alabama. I'm going to have to go rewatch that.
Yeah, it's really impressive stuff. I mean, he's like angling around the edge, and then on run plays, he's hitting the inside, and he definitely jumped off the screen. It's kind of the first I heard of him, to be honest, was like, who's this Jackson character in this Arkansas-Alabama game? Unfortunately, Arkansas doesn't have Alabama on the schedule this week, so it's not like they're in a huge game. but they are playing Florida. And Florida, I mean, they're in a get off the mat spot. They had a big loss to Georgia last week. And Arkansas, at this point, every game they play, they're trying to save their coach's job. Because Sam Pittman, who was once kind of one of the feel-good stories of college football as this new coaching hire, and, he's a big fat guy who yells "Woo Pig Suey," so people like him a lot. Turns out he might be a buffoon, and it seems like if they lose this game to Florida, he might be getting fired.
All right. Well, let's roll on to my guy. I made the joke earlier about just watch the Georgia game, and I decided to keep that theme going here. I went with Armarius Mims, right tackle out of Georgia. And, I mean, Eagles fans, you don't want to hear this, but this is probably Jason Kelsey's last year. Now, granted, we've said that for 3 years. Could not be.
It definitely is.
But I'm pretty sure it is. Lane Johnson in the Swan, nearing the end of his career for the Jason Kelsey thing. I mean, if you guys haven't watched the Amazon Prime documentary, first of all, go watch it. It's incredible. I watched it on my flight to Philadelphia. But like seeing the struggle he went through, deciding if he could run it back another season, like this offensive line's about to change. The Eagles value the trenches. They prioritize the trenches. I really don't think they can draft a defensive tackle in the first round for the third year in a row. So we look at the offensive side of the ball, and Armarius Mims is a great prospect. He's a 4 or a 5-star recruit, depending on where you look. He played 121 snaps at right tackle in 2021. He played 288 snaps there in 2022. He was injured in the South Carolina game this year, which was mid-September. He missed 4 games after having an ankle surgery, but he's dressing for practice this week for the first time. I think he will play. It's not for sure, but he's likely to play for this weekend for the first time since mid-September. Now, he is 6'7", 340 pounds, which is 95th and 94th percentile, respectively. Mark likes the big edge rushers. Give me big offensive tackles all day. Mark and I build our football teams to compete against one another. In his 321 snaps across his career, which is not a lot. That's not a lot of snaps. He's allowed 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hits, and only 6 pressures. He does a really good job getting a wide base, which is important at his size. He understands leverage in the run game, does a really good job sealing the edge. He's got really good instincts, great agility. He can execute reach blocks, which is where you jump across the face of a defender and seal him off. He can climb to the second level. Powerful punch as a pass blocker. I think he does a good job like working off combo blocks in the run game where he gets the double team and then releases to the second level. Now, he wants contact and he wants to move forward, not backwards. And so he tends to lunge for contact in his pass drops, which is problematic. It makes him struggle with counter moves when guys don't try to bull rush him. So there's some technical things to refine there. I think he's a first-round pick. I think he is a right tackle of the future. Maybe, depending on how he plays out the rest of this year and what teams get a vibe of him in workouts and things, if they think he can move to left tackle, he might be off the board well before the Eagles could draft him. I think Eagles fans, if you want this guy, you probably hope that he just struggles a little bit coming back off of this injury and it pushes him down that draft board, because I do think he has potential to rock it up and maybe end up being like a top 10 pick. So Armarius Mims, keep an eye on him. Hope he doesn't flash too good, but I do think this is a very talented player.
I have a funny story to throw at Dibes here, because I knew that there's other Georgia offensive linemen that are very much NFL draft prospects. I think the biggest one's probably Cedric Van Pran. I could be wrong about that, but I know he's a center that people are pretty sure will go in the top, however you want to say, first round, second round. But I knew that there were other guys. So I went and I was looking Tate Ratledge. I went and Googled. I Googled Tate Ratledge NFL draft to get an idea of where he's at on boards. First thing I see, Edge of Philly Sports. Second thing I see, Mr. Crockpot Media. So just shout out to Dibes up there. Also, Xavier Truss is another one who I'm pretty sure is going to be an NFL draft prospect as well. I would wager to say the Eagles will draft an offensive lineman from Georgia this year. If there's 4 of them that are going in the top 3-4 rounds, the Eagles will have an offensive lineman from this offensive line.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say. Hey, why not just go get them both? Maybe Cedric Van Pran he's a center. He falls to the second round. Go get him.
Yeah. Mims screams as a guy that is right on the Eagles target list, man. Like, there's a lot of really intriguing offensive tackles that could be in the Eagles' range, like Kingsley Suamataia. Patrick Paul is another big one. All these guys are toolsy guys, guys that I think will blow up in the combine, like 6'7", 6'8", huge arms, great athletes. It's a very deep year at offensive tackle, and that's not including the top three like Latham and Olu and, of course, Joel.
Yeah, I was going to ask you with Olu and All. I know that they've both kind of had disappointing seasons this year. Is there any chance they end up kind of falling out of the for sure top 10 category?
I possibly, because I had those guys pegged as top 5 picks. Like I thought Alt and Fashanu were going to be in the top 5. And you look at Penn State, man, he's definitely struggled. Olu Fashanu has not had a good year.
Now, if you're looking for why is this guy going to fall, I mentioned he's only played 321 career snaps right now. Obviously, he has the rest of this year left, but top guys that went last year, Paris Johnson goes 6th overall. He had 1,600 snaps. Again, 321 for Mims. Peter Skoronski goes 11th overall. He had 2,400 snaps at the collegiate level. Darnell Wright went 10th overall. Thank you, Chicago Bears, for not taking Jalen Carter. He had 2,700 career snaps. So he's very inexperienced at the college level.
How about Jones? Do you have the amount of snaps Broderick Jones played? Because that might be a more comparable guy since same system. I don't think he was a long-term starter there. I could be wrong.
Broderick Jones went 14th. He had just under 1,400 career snaps.
Wow. Still had a good amount. Wow.
So he had like 500 in 2020, 2021 combined, and then he had 933 in 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
So, all right. So there it is. Some Eagles targets to watch if you're not just going to watch the Georgia game, or even if you are going to watch the Georgia game. So you can keep your eye on those guys. Let's turn the page now and let's talk our Eagles Player of the Week predictions.
You can't manage this, can't break this, boy, I'm funded. Gotta keep my distance when you not 100, From the same one say they love you, lay they funny, You can't match my energy, and yeah, you know it, Way too cold, yeah, man, I'm way too cold, Way too cold, yeah, man, I'm way too cold.
All right, Dives, you are up. Lead us off here. Who is your Player of the Week prediction?
One of my favorite running backs in this class, right up there with Audric Estime and Travion. It is Trey Benson, running back out of Florida State. 6'1", 223 pounds, tall runner, north to south kind of dude. Just a supercharged pinball with a strong, compact build, powerful lower body. Just checks off a ton of boxes as a potential workhorse running back at the next level. Size, explosiveness, foot speed, contact balance, field vision, physicality, man. He's also got some flashes of route running ability as well. I think big explosive backs are kind of like the thing in the NFL these days, thanks to a lot of the light boxes we're seeing, a lot of the too high safety looks we're seeing. And I think this guy has a physical skill set that can be either like a 1B in a good offense, or maybe a viable part of a run-heavy offense in the NFL. FSU plays Pittsburgh this week. They're coming off a 58-7 loss to the Fighting Irish. The Seminoles have put up at least 31 points every game this season, 40 points per game over the last 4 weeks. Give me Trey Benson, man, who I think is right up there with the best of the best. I love this guy. Pittsburgh kind of low-key has a very good run defense, so we'll see. I think, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, because you watched them, I'm sure, with Notre Dame, but Trey Benson is one to watch out for.
Yeah, they want to force you to pass for sure.
All right, so Trey Benson, Florida State here. Mark, who is your Player of the Week prediction?
I'm regretting it already. I thought I had picked Bo Nix already this year, but I remembered Shane picking him. So I got that kind of mixed up in my head. This should be Bo Nix, but I'll go with his teammate. I'll go with running back Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving kind of one of the storylines of last week or the last couple weeks with how good he's been. The last 3 games, Oregon's played some pretty good teams with Washington State, and Utah. 3 of the bigger games of the last 3 weeks. I mean, 2 of those games is where College game day was. So 2 of them were deemed the biggest games of the week. Against Washington, 22 carries, 127 yards, and a touchdown, 6 catches, 34 yards. Against Washington State, 15 carries for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns, 3 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown. This week against Utah, 14 for 83 and a touchdown, 4 catches for 36 yards. The only reason he didn't get more in that game is because they won 35-6. He didn't get work in the second half. I believe Shane has a highlight queued up from 2 weeks ago against Washington State, and just watch this jump cut from Bucky Irving. Whoop! I mean, that is just unbelievable. I mean, I could watch it like 10 times. It is mesmerizing stuff right there. That is scary, scary stuff. He is a guy who it's kind of burst onto my radar. Like, I knew who he was just from watching Oregon. They're one of the bigger teams to follow in the country. But all the focus is Bo Nix. The focus is on some of their other NFL draft guys. I didn't have my focus on Bucky Irving. I think he has a big week this week against a pretty piss poor Cal defense. But Bo Nix probably will have a bigger day.
All right. Well, I mean, let's be honest. You didn't forget about Bo Nix. You just wanted to show that clip of the jump cut.
Yeah, that is what it is. By the way, he's averaging 7.2 yards per carry. I wanted to get that number right. That's a sickening number.
Yeah.
But yeah, that jump cut, I had to find a way to use it.
All right, and that brings me to my player of the week prediction. I'm going to go with Michael Penix Jr. because when you get the opportunity to take a Heisman candidate against a trash defense in USC who's lost 2 games in a row and their coach and their quarterback don't even know if they want to play football anymore this season, you smash that button. Michael Penix Jr., USC's defense is allowing almost 250 yards per game. Their pass defense ranks 104th in the NCAA. Meanwhile, Penix is averaging 368 passing yards and 3 touchdowns a game. He's only got 6 interceptions and 5 sacks all season. He leads the NCAA in passing yards. He's 1 touchdown off of the lead in touchdowns. He leads the NCAA in passing grade per PFF. His 6.5% big-time throw percentage is top 25, while his 1.2% turnover-worthy play rate is like the lowest, like one of the best 5. I never know if you should say top 5 or like bottom 5. He doesn't turn the ball over or put it in danger. He has a 6.8% pressure to sack rate, which is 6th in the NCAA this season. Michael Penix Jr. is playing incredible football, and the only way USC is going to win this game is in a shootout because their defense stinks. And bring it on. It's going to inflate his stats. Michael Penix Jr., lock it in. Player of the week. I better win this. I'm going to be so mad if I use my Michael Penix Jr. And I used my Bo Nix pick, and we tied it with Xavier Worthy and Travis Hunter that week, and I'm still mad about it. Michael Penix Jr. better run away with this one.
He's a beast, man. He's got to be number 1 in the Heisman watch, right? Like, got to be.
Yeah, for sure.
He is. I want to pull up the odds, actually, just real quick. I know we got to zoom through this, but I'm skeptical that Penix wins the Heisman. I know he's the leader. He's got some tough games upcoming. If they're not in the playoffs, I think it'll be a tough sell to give the Heisman to a quarterback from Washington. And all I'm saying is, and I hate, there's nothing more I hate to say than this because it disgusts me to my core. But JJ McCarthy, the Michigan's played absolutely nobody this year, and he's had a chance to build up his stats and resume and pad against the Little Sisters of the Poor. And then he has 2 big games to end his season with Penn State and Ohio State. Those are chances on big stages after building up a resume against bad teams to kind of take advantage of, people just paying attention at the end of the year, and he'll have the stats for a Heisman. He would be one of the worst Heisman of all time.
Yeah.
All right. Mark, do you have a lock of the week for us this week?
Yeah, and it's coming at you from where I'm at. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona right now, and I am riding with the Arizona Wildcats against Chip Kelly's UCLA Bruins. So I know that that's not going to be too hard of a sell for a lot of the Eagles fans watching here that want to root against Chip. But Fafita, this is the guy. I think that's how you say it. Fifita, Arizona's new quarterback. He is an electric factory. Arizona is currently the best team in the country against the spread. They're covering by the widest margin in the country, and they are 7-1 against the spread. They're going against UCLA. Arizona, I think this is like the start of the turnaround of the Arizona program. Jed Fish doing a great job there. But this Fifita guy, this new quarterback that they brought in, and they had a good one in Jaden Delaria, who people liked a lot. He got hurt. They brought in the backup. This backup might be the best quarterback in the country. It kind of feels like how Caleb Williams felt when he came in for Oklahoma 2 years ago, where it's like, wait a second. The best quarterback in the country was riding a bench last week. Like, that's kind of how it feels right now with Arizona. He is a special talent. And I think Arizona and Kansas both being underdogs this week is insane to me. So Arizona and Kansas are my two favorite bets of the week.
All right. So Mark's lock of the week. Let's get into our game of the week. There's a lot of good games this weekend. There's 3 or 4 highly ranked matchups, but there's none bigger than LSU, number 13 LSU, at number 8 Alabama, 7:45 kickoff on Saturday night. This is unstoppable force meets immovable object. LSU leads the NCAA with 47.5 points per game scored. Alabama allows only 16.5. So offense versus defense. It's a tale as old as time. Alabama is favored right now by 3.5, which is pretty much what you get for home field advantage. So, and furthermore, I almost came on here and said, but LSU is coming off of their bye weeks. They've had an extra week to prepare. Alabama's also coming off their bye week. Both teams with 2 weeks to get ready for this game. Should be really high-level football being played. Dives, break this one down for us. What do you expect to see on Saturday night?
Yeah, this one has one of the most fun matchups of the season. My number 3 wide receiver in the class, Malik Neighbors, versus my number 1 cornerback in the class in Kool-Aid McKinstry. Neighbors has nearly 1,000 yards already, 9 touchdowns this season. He's got 10 or more targets in 5 of 8 games this year. And Jaden Daniels has a 136.9 quarterback rating when targeting Malik Neighbors. Man, this guy can dominate in the slot. He's an excellent route runner, legitimate speed threat downfield. He's a round 1 talent. It's about 50-50 in terms of playing in the slot and playing on the outside for Neighbors. They like to move him around a lot. And then you get to Kool-Aid McKinstry, who had elite numbers in 2022, but you look at 2023 through 8 games, he's not having nearly the same level of production. He's allowed 12 receptions on 27 targets and 10.9 yards per reception this year. He's allowed a touchdown. He's got 0 interceptions and just 2 pass deflections. What you like most about Kool-Aid McKinstry is that physical foundation. He's 6'1", 188 pounds, amazing length. So he's going to be great at press. He can jar receivers at the line, block passes at the catch point, just a technician. He's a guy that plays the majority of the time on the outside, but he's got great fluidity to mirror receivers at every level. I've got McKinstry as a top 15 pick in this year's draft. So when those two are lined up against each other, that is must-see TV.
All right. So, Mark, what do you have on this one? Dives gave us a good matchup here. Which way are you leaning for this game? How do you think it's going to play out?
Yeah, I lean towards Bama. I think Bama's defense is legit. I think Jalen Milroe is playing a lot better than he was earlier in the season. I lean Bama to win it. I don't know if I'll be on it yet. Bama minus 3.5 on the lean section of my card right now. It might make it to the bets. We're not sure about that yet. But what I'll say is this is a chance for both of these teams who thought they were over, thought their seasons were down the drain, thought, when you're LSU or Alabama, you're competing for a national championship. That's the focus. Whoever wins this game's back in the conversation. If Bama wins this game, you're probably cruising to the SEC title game with 1 loss to play Georgia. If LSU wins this game, we might have a conversation about the first college football playoff team in this era to make it with more than 1 loss. Because if LSU wins this game and then they go into the SEC title game and beat Georgia, you're a 2-loss SEC champion with wins against Georgia and Bama. It's going to be hard to leave the SEC champ out. So no matter what, this game's pretty big. It comes down to Jalen Daniels versus the Bama defense, like Shane said, and it's going to be a fun one. I'm leaning defense. I'll go Bama 24, LSU 20.
I don't know. I'm actually leaning towards LSU on this one. So I'm going to go LSU. I think Jaden Daniels is legit. I think LSU is battle tested. They've had a ridiculous schedule this year. Going up against the Florida States, going up against the Mississippis, going up against the Missouris. Like they've played a lot of great teams. I think this is the game that maybe they put it together this weekend.
LSU got Bama, and that would usually make me – they got them last year. LSU beat Bama last year in LSU, and that would usually make me say, like, oh, this coach has a good read on Saban, but makes me nervous with Bama. Are they going to lose 2 years in a row to the same team? Makes me nervous.
Great game.
So Mark says defense wins championships. Dive says get with it in the 21st century. Offense is the way to go. You guys will have to tune in Saturday night and see which way it plays out. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the BGN Draft Show. It was really good to be back with you guys this week after the week off. If you enjoyed this show, be sure you hit the subscribe button so you get all the shows on the BGN feed. You can check us out on Twitter. I'm at Shane Haff NFL. Dibes is at Mr. Crockpot. Mark is at Mark Henry Jr. We will catch you guys next week for another episode where Michael Penix Jr. wins Player of the Week of the BGN Draft Show. Go Birds.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard.